Hello, fashion friends and family. This is Stacy here from Sew Bremo and Elsa Fitzgerald. I am on my way to Marty's. I'm gonna take you along with me because some of you may have heard in some of the past content that I grew up in this neighborhood as a child, but I thought it'd be fun to show you what I mean. This is the lobby area of the Baltimore Innovation Center. Okay, so this road is where or the sidewalk I used to skate on as a little girl. And just over there is Marty's Deli that we're gonna walk over to. But I love all the kind of red brick building, very notoriously, literally Baltimore. Right here. It's my backyard. There used to be a tree here, a really big tree, and my mom had this cement removed and dirt so she had a garden here. And at one point that was my bedroom. So if I turn here, this is the Wacomico building, which is crazy. Well, also known as Baltimore Innovation Center. I remember when they were first doing some work over here, I remember looking through this window into my backyard. In this area because my grandfather Edwin Stube was helping. Well, he's a minister of the church on Washington Boulevard, which is just near here. But anyway, they had come together and with the congregation and then started giving food to the homeless in the area, and what started as one soup bowl turned into a whole nonprofit organization, which is still active today. So that's where I grew up, 803 West Cross Street. Another point, that was one of my bedrooms there. This was a little corner store, and I spent all my allowance here. Not that it was much, but that was buy like a bag of potato chips, Cheetos, for like 25 cents. And the little Now and Later candy was like 10 cents or less. So I would walk from here to just one block there, whereas another, not this house corner, but right after that, there's a red brick building, and that was my elementary school. So there's a lot of red brick buildings. My childhood home, and over there is the building. I do find it rather serendipitous that I ended up going around the world, from Baltimore to London, London to Bali, back to not only my hometown, but my backyard, my childhood backyard. So this is where I used to sit. It's kind of, okay, this is a very unhealthy morning, but I will be having some things. My bacon, egg, and cheese. I brought you upstairs to the 8th floor of this building, and as I'm looking out, I see my elementary school. And this city, for our international friends, is Baltimore. And this is Pigtown. Here is the Bremo Seltzer Clock Tower where we had the artist studio. Over there's the World Trade Center, and then we have the harbor. Something to also note, I came back to Baltimore, worked for one of the last factories from the original garment industry. So in the 1970s, there was a mass exodus. There was a lot of fighting and turmoil in the garment industry in Baltimore due to workers' rights, a fight with lower wages abroad, and then just sort of, it was a constant state of exploitation. It was always sort of taking advantage of the most sort of vulnerable in the society, and it happened to be the immigrant community, but they brought with them a lot of skill sets within the needle trades and sewn goods area. I worked for a factory, I won't say the name of the factory, but I worked for a factory that's located in this building, so you can probably Google and search them, but they're sort of the last of the industry. So when those factories closed down, the owner of that factory, well, he wasn't owner of a factory, he was a manager of a factory and was out of a job. So with 2 sewing machines, he kept sewing, or he didn't sew himself, but he had the stitchers sewing and really worked on a lot of interesting projects. That said, that is the last of that sort of wave of that industry in terms of like that manufacturing that's here like in the city. There's probably a few other like smaller batch shops that have opened up, but in terms of like that transition from old school industry to new school industry, or I would say new school industry, but still being active now. I saw a lot of things, right? You see from the lens of like, well, if this is all that we have, this is the best we're going to have. I don't believe that. I believe that we've created a system of the fashion industry that is not acceptable, and that's not even from the environmental lens that I even start with. I start from the lens of the human beings that are creating these garments that are not allowed to, even in the United States and abroad, to have a sustainable living wage. We do not need to pump out a lot more product. We don't, and that's sort of been the approach. So in terms of framing, people used to make their own clothes. They used to be done in the home, and these skill sets were sort of as common as cooking your own meal. You would be preparing and creating your own garments, in particular the ladies, the women in the household. But as we got really busy and how the industry started to try to scale and expand and grow, what it did is it kind of mechanized the human, and then the human was then forced to work faster and more efficiently, and then elements of the garment in terms of technical process were removed. You had to make things faster, so that also meant maybe you wouldn't put buttonholes. And so as we continue to dilute the technical elements that went into a garment in order to speed up the process, in order to save money, and I always talk about like the hands-on sewing machine time, there's a part of the essence of the industry and the beauty of making that is lost. So that's a lot. There's so many layers to the industry, and that's not even talking about the wage. So I stand here for a few reasons. So when I ran the 200 miles, and I feel like someone telling this old story, but I ran because I was angry, I was frustrated, and two of my colleagues in the industry died suddenly, and no one was doing anything about it. It was just sort of like, oh well, we're gonna miss them, and then their skill set faded, and it was like, what a disservice to an industry that was a part of this city's roots, its foundation, its heritage. Not that it was good, not that it was kind and responsible, but there are parts of it that are beautiful. There the connection, the community, the kind of idea sharing, the maker element that I dream that could exist here in the city or be an example. And so that is why Baltimore can be and is moving towards becoming the capital city for impact-driven fashion entrepreneurship. Why? Because it is the entrepreneurs, the early stage entrepreneurs, that can change the system. They can say no to cheap wages or low wages and exploiting individuals, and really rethinking what do I offer, what value can I create, and how can I actually add value to society through the businesses we found here. And so that's why we want to be that resource for people, not just from like a factory worker trying to get higher wages and economic development from that lens. We're really looking at it from the lens of the entrepreneurial economic development. How do you get that individual to understand their value so they can transfer that to the people they're working with, so they can transfer that to the community of consumers, to then that have that ripple out into the environment and the kind of world environment. What materials are they working with? Are they being responsible in their sourcing? There's so many different layers of that, and it's not an easy process. But on this floor, or in this building, or on the second floor, or somewhere else in this city, we've got to start igniting and clustering together and creating not scale of exploitation and scale of volume of production, but scale of entrepreneurs who are challenging big business and are really creating new solutions for an industry that is a little bit dusty and irresponsible. Now we're going to go downstairs to the second floor, which we don't have the funding for yet, but we're making applications for. But could we convert an entire floor, just under 50,000 square feet, into an entire garment district that is mindful, responsible, and kind to the human beings that are creating this connection to commerce? Welcome to the second floor. This floor is mostly used for storage, but it's really not operational in the sense that the bathrooms, there's no toilets, there's no bathrooms, but we do have our items here. And the reason I'm taking you down here is that this is where I see that the future fashion innovation hub for Baltimore could be. So it is, I believe, the equivalent of the yeah, it's the 50,000 square feet. But there would be have to get funding in order to convert this into a semi-usable space. I mean, we could really make do, especially since it's sort of for artists, needle trade studio spaces. So we want to keep the operation costs down. See, there's like restaurant appliances. And this is where we have our cute heritage sewing babies, where we were going to start doing some film production. I want to thank Karina for the Baltimore Development Corporation for really staying on me, in particular via LinkedIn Messenger, to look at what ways that we can make this application through TEDCO to create a fashion innovation hub in Baltimore that is really branding it as the fashion capital city for impact-driven entrepreneurship. I will be working on the application today in the mix of checking in on how the class is going, because this knowledge, we really want to make sure it transfers and so that we can continue to grow. All right, I will take you along with me. Here, and so we want it to finish like this.
So that
This is going to be a little hard to...
because it went a little far down.
Well, no, because it's not clipped yet. So all we have to do... We are wrapping up classes today with a beer at Wicco. Cheers! See you next time.